join us there and watch the counter.
We need like waiting room music or something.
I know, right?
Just a tornado siren going off.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's always. I'm sure there's like a delay with it, but yeah, no, I'm excited to talk about this tonight for sure because yeah, I'm excited. I love the new changes. By the way, they're great. So
Good. I'm glad.
very much. So I'm yeah, I don't know. It's gonna be fun. So I know this will probably be part of the live thing. So just trying to
Yeah.
get everybody ready to roll and
All
such. But
right,
yeah,
let's make sure this is pushing. Okay, it says we are live now.
yeah. Whenever you
So
Riverside, so it'll go live here in a second.
rock on. I can see us, so I think we are good to go here. Excellent.
Perfect.
Awesome.
So thank you to everyone who is joining us. This is the first Girls Who Chase Live that is not being run in Twitter Spaces. So this is obviously a very different way for us to return to lives, and thank you in advance to everyone for bearing with us as we work out any potential kinks with the new software and with the new process and everything. But very excited to have Liz with us today. So, the way we're going to run this particular live, because we have quite a bit of information to share with everyone, is we will introduce ourselves and then turn it over to Liz to present to you for probably about a half hour. During that time, we will be monitoring the YouTube chat. That is where, if you have questions for Liz or questions about her presentation, you're going to want to drop those questions, and we will be aggregating those, keeping an eye on the chat and pushing them through as we get to the Q&A portion. So we'll have about an hour for Q&A after Liz presents. And we will remind folks of that as we pass through. So let's quickly introduce ourselves, and I want to talk a little bit about Girls Who Chase, and then we will hand it over to Liz. So Rachel, if you would like to kick us off.
Yeah, sure, for sure. So, hi everybody, Rachel Center. I am the co-founder of Tornado Titans. We do a lot of severe weather education. There's a lot of folks probably from our channels joining us here right now. So, welcome. This is a great partnership we have with Girls Who Chase, and I am absolutely thrilled to be here and talking severe storms and not winter storms. That's the thing that makes me happy right now. I'm so tired of winter, but I'm a
Yeah, got it. Thanks, Rachel. And it is a wonderful partnership that we have with Tornado Titans. I love having Rachel with us for this stuff. Both of these folks are some of my favorite people in the world, so it just gives me a chance to nerd out with my favorite people. I am Jen Walton. I'm the founder of Girls Who Chase. For those of you who are somewhat new to us, we are a global media and education initiative focused on encouraging participation and access to fields where women have traditionally been underrepresented. That includes storm chasing and extreme nature reporting, extreme weather and natural disaster research, and disaster response. Our programs are designed to create visible pathways, build confidence, and enable participation and access to weather and meteorology and science spaces, as well as inspire people to pursue their thing, whatever the thing is. And we like it to be storm chasing, but it really could be anything. We're also globally recognized as a producer of accessible, high quality weather education programs. We host the popular spring training event. And there's tons more information about us at girlswhochase.com. I encourage you to check that out. I will shut up now and hand it over to Liz to introduce herself and start her presentation.
Great. Thank you, Jen and Rachel. Really glad to be here. Thank you for the opportunity to let me be here to kind of talk about the new things that SPC are going to be doing this spring. But before I get too far ahead of myself, I am Liz Leitman. I am a meteorologist and forecaster at the Storm Prediction Center. I have been in the National Weather Service for 20 years, and 16 of those I have spent at the Storm Prediction Center. So, like many of the people viewing right now, severe storms are my passion. Love it. And like Rachel said, I'm so glad that we are creeping up on spring here soon, because I think just about everybody is done with winter. So I'm going to jump right in, and I'm going to kind of give a presentation that talks about some of these changes that SPC has in store for this spring. And so I'm kind of assuming that everyone who is here knows who the Storm Prediction Center is and is at least sort of familiar with our severe weather outlooks. And so I'm going to just jump right in. This, of course, is a historic day, April 27th, 2011, the super outbreak in the Southeast US. This image in particular is of our tornado probability outlook. This is what our tornado, hail, wind outlooks have looked like for many, many, many years. The color-filled coverage probabilities, and then that black hatched line that indicates 10% coverage of significant severe weather. And whenever we say significant, we mean tornadoes EF2 or greater, hail greater than 2 inches, winds greater than 65 knots. But what if our outlook looked like this? And instead of just that single black hatched area, we have these 3 levels, these 3 tiers of intensity that could give you some higher resolution information about where the most extreme storms are expected during the event. And that is something that we have been researching and developing for about the past 6 years now. And why are we doing this? Well, we want to get rid of that being tied to that 10% coverage probability for that black hatched significant area. A couple of reasons for that. If we had a 10% tornado probability and then we slapped on that 10% significant black hatched area on top of it, we're basically implying that every single tornado that happened within that area would be EF2 or greater. Mathematically, that doesn't make sense. That's not how the atmosphere works, and we know that that's not really what happens. And so we want to divorce the coverage from the intensity so that we can tell you how many storms may be in the area. What is the coverage going to be like? And if you see a storm, how severe is it going to be? And so now these intensity forecasts are based on storm environment and storm mode. And so we can better tell you how extreme is this event going to be. Again, getting into why this need for that change. This slide's just kind of highlighting that. Currently, with our 10% SIG hatched area, it just implies anything from an EF2 to an EF5 tornado. It doesn't differentiate between an EF2 or an EF5. It treats them the same. And we know that the impact from those 2 types of tornadoes is not the same. One has significantly different outcomes compared to the other. Same thing with our wind speeds. A 65 knot gust is much different than 100 knot gust that you may see in a derecho. And so we're really trying to hone in on the impacts from the severe storms that we're anticipating. I think one of the things that maybe initially has made people a little nervous whenever they first saw these graphics, whenever we announced that this change was coming, and they're like, whoa, there's a lot of information on that graphic. How do I interpret it? What do these levels mean? Because we have 3 different hazards, tornado, wind, and hail, that we forecast for, these are the definitions for those intensity levels for the different hazards. So a level 1 intensity area. In tornado would be EF2 plus, is kind of like the max hazard that we would expect in those areas. The level 2 would be max EF3. And then the level 3, that's more of your historic, your outbreaks, EF4 tornadoes. So the forecast is basically a reasonable max intensity based on the environment and mode. It doesn't mean necessarily that there are going to be EF4 tornadoes in that intensity level 3. It means that we know that this environment is capable of supporting storms of this magnitude, and there's a likelihood that we'll at least see some storms of that intensity. And so this, and we can talk more about this later, but this kind of ties into the peak intensity information that we started including in our mesoscale discussions last year. And so all of this ties in together. So I'm just going to show some examples of what these outlooks would have looked like in the past and in the new paradigm. So for instance, here's an outlook from April of last year. This was a high-risk day, and you can see on the left there, that was the operational forecast that we issued for that day. And those are the tornado probabilities, and the red dots are the tornado reports. So this is verification. And we actually were already issuing these conditional intensity areas, these 3 different tiers in the background in-house. We've been doing that for the last 2 years. And so what you see on the right is what this outlook would look like in 2026 once we start doing this in March. But these are lines that the forecaster actually drew that day as we were doing the experiment in-house. And so you can see that these 3 different tiers, they add some high-res information. They help hone into the areas of where we really think those most intense storms are going to be. And the areas don't always match up exactly with the highest probabilities, and that's on purpose, because again, the probabilities tell you coverage. It's where we think the highest concentrations of storms are going to be. But you can still have significant storms in low coverage. We see that a lot in the plains in the spring with dryline events. Are we going to get storm initiation? How many storms will there be if we do? So you may end up with a low coverage event, but still the environment, if a storm forms, is capable of producing quite intense, severe storms. And so that's another upshot to doing these intensity tiers. Here's just another example. This is from a derecho last year in South Dakota into Minnesota. You can see we had that, just single SIG area, but in the background issuing these conditional intensity forecasts, you can see where the forecaster kind of drew that area that was pinpointing a lot better where some of the most significant winds actually were measured. And then this is just an example with hail, again, from last year, an event in Nebraska and Iowa that produced some very, very large hail. You just get some better details about where exactly the most intense storms are going to be. So real quick, just the key takeaways. The frequency of outlook areas will be the same as in prior years. So a moderate risk going forward in 2026 it's gonna mean the same thing that it meant in previous years. And the frequency will not increase because the outlook categories themselves are unchanged. It's the intensity information and the way that we describe we show you that intensity information is changing. So in the past, you may have had to dig into, our long technical discussions to dig out that information. Now it's presented right there for you graphically in this new paradigm. Okay, I don't think that was 30 minutes. That was actually really quick, and there will probably be a lot of questions, and so I am happy to answer questions. Let's see, Jen, would it be best if I just stopped sharing? Like, I wanted to keep it short and just hit the highlights and be like, here's what it looks like. This is why we're doing it.
I think we could do that. We were having some weird glitchy YouTube situation happening behind the scenes. So I think we have folks who are just joining us here in the last like 4 or 5 minutes.
Okay.
So take yourself off mute. Okay, there she is. So I think let's actually back up a step. Because I don't have any questions yet, and just repeat kind of the structure of how we want to run this, which was we were going to have Liz present for a little bit just on the updates and then turn it over to discussion and Q&A. Because we're using YouTube, the best place to do that is to drop your questions in the chat function. That should be accessible to everyone online and watching us. So if you have a specific question about Liz's presentation, please do drop it in the chat. Also, because this is a Girls Who Chase Live, we can certainly take other questions about Girls Who Chase or some of our upcoming events and the like. There's always a few that tend to happen in our historical lives, like on Twitter Spaces and stuff. So, and I appreciate, by the way, those of you notifying us that you were having issues, because that helped me catch it fairly quickly. So apologies for that. If you know anyone else who's having a problem, I've dropped the correct link under our most recent post on Facebook to YouTube, as well as in the chat as well. Yes. Hi, Lori. Thank you for joining us. And Kimmy and April, and it's great to see some familiar names. Okay, so we are getting requests, Liz, for like zooming in on some of these graphics in your presentation. So one is good to know, Lori. We're like, again, this is our first time doing a live like this on YouTube. So thank you in advance for bearing with us and being our guinea pigs in the feedback. This is really helpful. So one request was to put the outlooks back up and zoom in a bit on the severe areas so folks can see a little bit more detail. And then also to show the new intensities one more time. So basically a little bit more time on some of those graphical slides would be awesome.
Let me share my screen again. Okay. All right, can you see my screen? Are you good?
Yep.
Yes, but
you can see it. Okay, let me all right, so this is in slideshow mode. So I'm not sure if I can I zoom in on that?
Well, we can test it out and see.
Yeah, I'm gonna try.
Thanks again for your patience, everybody.
And if you can't, that's okay. John can get his magnifying glass and stick it up to the computer screen. It'll be okay.
Yeah, it won't let me do it in slideshow mode.
Got it.
So let me see. Whoa, okay. That messed up the resolution.
We did test out the slideshow, but we didn't test out like zooming into things. So we'll just figure this out in real time while you guys watch.
Oh yeah, it's happening now. I see it. The zooming is happening.
Okay.
Oh yay! That's one way to do it. Sure.
I mean, does that help? Okay, so you can
absolutely.
see the new style outlook there. Towards the left. I don't know if I go to slideshow if it'll
probably
be zoomed in or not. Probably not, but let's try it. Yeah, no. Okay.
No.
No, yeah, absolutely not. No, hey, Liz, I do have a question myself
Sure.
on this. Just from your personal standpoint as a forecaster, a communicator, what's the most exciting thing to you about these new outlooks? Like, what are you looking forward to most that you couldn't do before that now you can do thanks to these new intensities?
Yes. So I will draw your attention to the 5% tornado probability. In the past, we have not been able to issue a 5% tornado probability with a SIG area. And so now that we aren't constrained by that 10% coverage probability with our previous hatched areas, we can now draw those SIG intensity areas into that 5% tornado. And so that's kind of what I was alluding to before, whenever I talked about you may have a low coverage event, but it still could be quite significant, quite intense. And so now we have unlocked ourselves from being constrained by that 10% probability to being able to draw these intensity areas over any probability.
Yeah, well, and just for the purpose of clarification for me as a storm chaser, so I can get my head around this, because quite honestly, I'm worried about this.
Mhm.
Say there's a SIG 2, a double hatch 2%. It's still a 2%, right? It just
Mhm.
means that the top end of that 2% can now be correctly conveyed versus before.
So, yes, there are still some constraints though, and I'll show it here in this tab. Let me zoom it out so you can actually see. So this is very similar to the tables that you can find on our website now for how our probability and SIG areas map to specific categories. And so this is just in the new paradigm where we have 3 different intensity categories. And over here on the left side, let me do the slideshow so that maybe this shows up bigger for you. There you go. So on the left column here, this is for tornado. And you'll see down here, like the SIG 3, the tier 3, level 3 intensity category is not used with a 2%. The highest that you can get with a 2% would be a slight if you went with an intensity group of 2. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I was
Okay.
giving Jen a chance to maybe talk, because I could ask questions all day long about this, because yeah, there's just so much. Jen, do we have anything in the chat that folks are asking about before I ask
Not
another one?
directly, but I want to talk a little bit about communicating risk, because
Mhm.
I think there was some strategy to this, and also this isn't actually brand new. This has been getting tested out and worked on and finessed now for many, many years. So I was wondering, Liz, if you could just articulate a little bit why this helps with communicating risk around severe weather, and how it may change like meteorologist interpretation versus general public interpretation. Like, what is the takeaway, I think, from the new graphics?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think it will be helpful because would you, for instance, the preparations that you might take for, oh, we might have tornadoes today that are in EF2 based on this outlook, or oh, today we might have tornadoes that are in EF4 or in EF5. Are you going to prepare differently? I know my actions would be different in that scenario. In EF2 intensity day, let's say, for example, I'm probably still going to go about my day, keeping an eye on the weather, knowing where I'm going to be, having a plan for where I'm going to shelter if I need to. If I'm in a high risk and I see that level 3 intensity over my area, I'm probably going to change my plans. Maybe cancel or reschedule things. And by the time, that the meteorologists are expecting storms to begin, I'm probably going to want to be where I would shelter. I'm not going to be wanting to be driving across town or stuck in traffic during rush hour on the interstate. I'm going to kind of want to be in my safe place already. And so I think that it'll help people be able to make smarter, wiser decisions, to plan ahead better, for how that they're going to handle these risks for their area for that given day.
Cool. Yeah, I think like I'm just looking at it and I'm just seeing there's so much more flexibility, it feels like, for you, Liz, in terms of how
Hmm.
y'all are going to be issuing outlooks. Because for me, it just feels like this is going to be more accurate overall. Like you're going to be able to denote like the days that we're going to get a lot of storms and maybe a lot of tornadoes, but they're not as significant as maybe May 24th, 2011 type of event here in Oklahoma, or
Hmm.
whatever. Name your high risk, basically.
Yeah,
So
yeah. One of the things, speaking to that I'm also really excited about is in the wind side of things. You can see like we can have really high coverage and not go above an enhanced risk. And so we have days, east of the Mississippi where there's lots of trees, lots more infrastructure than in the plains, things like that, where we have a lot of storms, but a lot of times, there are storms that are producing 55 to 65 mile an hour winds, which, you know, it's a severe storm, but the impact is more branches down, tree limbs down. Um, it's not a derecho in Iowa that's mowing down, thousands of acres of crops. And so, yes, it's high coverage, but the impacts are not as great as, some of those really intense, significant storms. And so we'll be able to include those higher probabilities without artificially inflating the risk category.
watching Jen to make sure she doesn't have anything.
I'm looking at the chat.
Okay.
There's some comments. I see one question. So I want to just like honorable mention the question about can this be used in Europe? So I can probably take that one actually.
Yeah, okay.
That like conceptually, I mean, I would just back out to say that a lot of the weather related research, forecasting tools, radar, et cetera, is often used as a model for like internationally. So from that perspective, I think conceptually, certainly there are things Europe could learn and vice versa from each other, but the SPC is focused on the contiguous US, Hawaii, Puerto Rico, Alaska. So because they're US, it's a US agency. So just wanted to take that one real quick. And yes, the forecasts aren't quite the same, Christine, but that was a interesting question from Barbara. And yeah, I think that's the way I would probably put that. I don't know if you two have any additions.
Nothing to
What
add
was
on that.
the
Oh, go ahead.
Europe question, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Commentary.
Yeah, I will say that, I had mentioned before, and I think I took this slide out of my presentation, but I think it's still in here. It's just hidden. Let me show it. So we have been working on this for a long time. As I said, over 6 years. We started in 2019 in the hazardous weather test bed. And the hazardous weather test bed spring experiment is something that SPC has been hosting or helping to host, since really the very late 90s, early 2000s. And during the test bed, we bring in, other meteorologists, researchers, academics from all spheres in the weather enterprise. And often we have several, researchers and meteorologists who are at weather, entities in Europe. And so, they would have tested this and provided feedback while we were doing this in the HWT. So there is collaboration, across the pond between SPC and our partners in Europe. So definitely something that, I'm sure will be looked into or at least discussed. So
we had sorry, Dina, we kind of like skipped over your initial request. Would you do another brief review, Liz, of the hatched areas, the intensity areas, especially because we have some new arrivals as well?
Sure.
And then I kind of have a follow-on question from Lori that I feel like will go well with this, which is this going to feel at all like a learning curve for folks who, like myself, are very habit-based and like have, grown to be very accustomed to the current SPC Outlook setup?
Okay, so first, is this the slide that you're talking about, just about the intensity levels?
I'm assuming so, Dina. If you need to correct us, please drop it in the chat.
Okay. As far as a learning curve, I mean, it's new, right? It is a change. And so there's always kind of a learning curve, some acclimation that comes with, getting used to something new. But I think that once we go through a couple of events, people are going to realize that it's really not too terribly different from what we were already doing. We're just adding enhanced information, more detailed information about the magnitude, the intensity of the severe storms to expect that day. And we're graphically drawing where those different areas are rather than having it buried in our technical discussion. So yeah, I mean, people might be a little uncomfortable at first, but I think once we go through a few events and they see it, they see that the categories still look the same. The probabilities still look the same. It's just those black hatches look a little bit different. But I think they're pretty self-explanatory with level 1, 2, 3 that, okay, those ones in the middle in the bullseye, that's the worst of it. And then it kind of slowly, the intensity decreases outward from there.
Liz, I may be asking a question here that's slightly outside of your expertise area. So just tell me to be quiet if I am going just slightly outside. But like when it comes to folks communicating this risk, I know we probably have some broadcast folks watching this. So, but this isn't even just especially for their purpose, but just like for the average person, what are some of the things that you would recommend when communicating the new intensity levels to people, either via like you're posting about it to your friends on social media, or you're someone like me who happens to have like hundreds of thousands of followers? Like, have y'all talked about this with folks internally, externally, and what are some of those recommendations, if so?
Yeah, and I do want to highlight, like, this is kind of our first sit down, if you will, to talk about this. So we do have more, we do have more trainings and more, media interviews and different things like that that'll be coming. In fact, today we spent a good chunk of the day recording for YouTube videos that we're going to put up on the SPC YouTube channel. And they will be aimed at different users. So, general public, broadcast media, emergency managers, other NWS meteorologists. We have a month-long schedule full of training and outreach and education that we're going to be doing because, we want to make sure everybody's on the same page and comfortable. So I think the key takeaway here and the thing really to recognize in what we're trying to do is that we're trying to tell people this is what the storm coverage is going to be like. And if you happen to see a storm in your area, this is how powerful it's going to be. And so in that, if you can kind of frame it from that perspective, it's pretty straightforward. Oh, there could be a lot of storms near me today, and I could see baseball hail and an EF3 tornado. That's probably not a good day. Yeah.
That's I talked about this on my YouTube channel a few days ago, and that's kind of how I described it to folks. Is like, this is just like you're taking what you've already done and then adding like one small step that basically gives you more information and more accuracy. Because there are some folks like who have been commenting, I don't know, this seems confusing. It's like, no, seems very simple, and it's actually going to make things more accurate because you're going to know what kind of a day you're looking at now versus before, where it's not quite as severe.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm still looking forward to that slight risk 2%, the SIG2, where I cannot resist the siren call of that, and I'm just gonna go out there, and it's gonna be a 2%, right? But I'm gonna be out there in this loaded environment waiting on a storm to fire, and maybe it's May 21st, 2011, maybe it's named the blue sky bust, but I'm not gonna be able to resist it. So if you want to troll me at some point this year, Liz, just issue that SIG2.
You'll be the first person I text after the forecast is out.
Yeah, we were already joking. Liz and I were doing a dry run last night and joking about how all the high plains chasers are just pretty much permanently going to have SIG too. Like, that's just life on the high plains, even though it doesn't exist. Yes. Let's see. So we have a question from Dina. So that was the right thing to put up, but she would love it if we could share the intensity level information somehow, which I'm assuming we have permission to do. So we could talk about it afterward. But
yeah. You mean like post it online or
like the graphic itself with the intensity levels laid out like that. Okay, awesome.
Sure. Yeah.
Let's see. We must be doing a really good job because we're not getting a ton of questions, actually. I mean, we could keep nerding out, I think, on. So there's a couple things I think we had made notes to mention here, Liz. Like, do you want to talk about the changes with the wind contours specifically?
Sure. Yeah. Let me go back to one of the examples that I showed or actually, let me go to the chiclet chart. There we go. Yeah, so you'll notice here, under the wind column, we have a 90% probability there. In the past, we didn't have that. And so that 75 and 90% corridor or contour, it's probably going to be pretty rare when we would issue that, especially the 90%. Typically, at least how I envision that being used, would be, let's say we already have a well-developed ongoing, significant severe MCS or derecho, and we're updating the outlook at, 20 or 01Z, in the late afternoon or evening, and we're highly confident that it's going to continue for several more hours, then we might throw out those higher probability coverages for that event. So I know I saw a lot of social media buzz on that specifically whenever the service change notification first went out, and everybody kind of lost their mind over it. But some of this is theoretical. We have the power to do it, but how often realistically is that going to happen? It'll probably be pretty rare. The same with Rachel's 2% SIG2 tornado area.
Yeah, honestly, like I'm thinking even like a 60% SIG 0. I don't know what we call the one less than 1, but like that feels like as far as a tornado risk, that probably won't come around as often. I feel like the corners of these charts are the ones that is where it's going to be less likely to occur versus the middle. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
But I will be chasing it, just so you know. Just please don't draw it in like eastern Montana. That's a really long drive.
Oh, but it's beautiful out there. You can see forever.
I know, but I'm gonna be in so much trouble. I'm gonna be in so much trouble. Hey, I'm leaving again. I'm going. It's a 2%, but it's a SIG too. And Sarah, my wife, is just gonna be, what are you talking about? Like, stop. Come back. Yeah.
Like I gotta go verify Liz's forecast. So.
Yeah.
I've literally said that a time or two.
Yes.
I wanted to repeat thanks, John. You're hired. John just mentioned, I don't think you're getting a lot of questions because the geniuses at the SPC came up with a clear, simple approach that's easy to understand. That's great feedback.
That seriously like makes my day. You have no idea. We've tried to be very intentional. Like I said, we've spent so many years developing this, working with other researchers, social scientists. We really wanted to make sure that we were going to put something out to the world that was usable, because you can make the greatest forecast in the world, but if people have no idea what you're saying, it's useless, and we definitely never want to do that. So thank you.
Yeah, I agreed. And Richard, also a good point, added that we're creatures of habit and it's kind of human nature to like resist change of any sort, Yeah. But I think something like this will probably be fairly easy to incorporate into our, and I did want to mention too, because this came up with Rachel yesterday, there was a question about whether it's going to change the MDs at all. And there's kind of an interesting answer to this. It's like a little bit of a trick question.
Yeah, and I wish I had included a graphic here of an MD. Do you mind if I pull one up really quick?
Go for it. Yeah, and folks, if you don't know MD, sorry, it's mesoscale discussion. So it's the SPC discussion that accompanies the graphics that we are talking through right now.
Here's the situation while Liz is pulling it up. It's going to be May 6th, 2026. The MD is going to come out.
We're holding you to this, Rachel.
Yeah, 20% watch unlikely, but it's going to be for a SIG 2 2% tornado risk with the maximum intensity on the MD being ridiculous. And I'm just going to be sitting there in eastern Montana under the sun wondering when it's going to happen.
I'm going to change.
I'm trying to set you up, Liz.
I'm going to change which tab I am sharing here so that you can see that. Okay, so let me, I can zoom in here, I'm pretty sure. Okay. Oops.
I mean, the one nice thing I think about using YouTube instead of Twitter is we can actually show visuals now as opposed to pinning tweets. So there's that, I guess.
So how does that look?
Looks great.
Okay, so this is what our MDs look like now. Last year, we added that little box that says most probable peak intensity. Peak intensity, that sounds familiar. That's what we've been talking about, right? For the last 45 minutes.
There it is.
And you see the tornado, hail, and wind, and it gives you the range there. That box actually comes directly from our outlook probabilities and the conditional intensity information that we drew in the outlook. I said that we'd been doing it in-house for the past 2 years behind the scenes. This past year, NWS forecasters have been able to see those conditional intensity outlooks in an internal webpage. But this information that we started sharing in the mesoscale discussions last year comes directly from these new outlook changes that we'd already been doing. And so it all ties together. Those peak intensity bins depend on environmental data, storm mode, and our convective outlook.
This was a day too. My goodness. I chased this day actually. First time I ever chased Arkansas. Woo! See, this is what you did to me, Liz. I chased Arkansas because of you on this day.
That's a commitment. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I actually love these. You mentioned y'all been doing this for a couple of years. And you mentioned this earlier, but we do have some folks who are coming in and out and such. So were there any days where the internal outlook ended up different like the new style versus the old style. Does that make sense? Like, did y'all have a day where it was an enhanced on one but a moderate on the other? Did that ever pop up?
Um, I can't think of any. Um, and so this will give you a little bit of insight maybe to how a lot of our minds work at SPC as uh, risk or hazard forecasters. Um, so the category that you see, like level 1 through 5, marginal, slight, enhanced, moderate, high, whatever word you want to use to call them, which we're trying to get away more from using those words and just saying level 1 through 5, um, because no one can agree on the words. Anyway, I lost my train of thought. So no, I can't think of a time where it changed the category. And personally, whenever I am looking at weather data, getting ready to start drawing my outlook, which we draw those lines by hand, I'm thinking from the perspective, okay, pattern recognition. So this is a favorable pattern for this type of severe event. This is what I'm seeing in the data for environmental parameters, whether it's wind shear, instability, moisture, how a surface low is deepening, how it's moving in relation to, the upper trough, stuff like that. And after doing this for years and years and years, you kind of envision, oh, this is going to be a moderate day risk, like slam dunk. So I'm thinking categorically whenever I'm looking at my data. And so I kind of already have in mind the category that I want to get to. And then from there, I'm like, okay, what is driving this event? Is my moderate driven by tornado? Is it driven by wind? Is it driven by hail? Is it a mix of them? And then I start going in and drawing my probabilities and adjusting things to make sure that I get the right area that I want in that particular category to that level.
Yeah. Yeah, and you answered that beautifully. I have a confession to make. I think about it in those terms too when I'm looking at days, like you are a few days in advance, you're like, oof, oof. And for me, I'm like, this is like this day right here. The reason why we went to Arkansas is like 3 days before. I said that's gonna be a gosh darn high risk or whatever choice words I use, but it just looked like that kind of a day. And you have way more experience with this, like it's not even close. So yeah, it's just cool to hear that you all use pattern recognition and such. um Darn it, I had a question in my head, but Jen, it just popped out of my head. I'm having what might be called an old person moment. Could you take over for a second while I
Oh,
refer to my notes?
goodness. I know nothing about old person moments. Um, so we do have a question here from North MS Weather. I'm assuming MS is Missouri, or Mississippi. So how would one differentiate between peak intensity of an EF3 or EF4 plus in the mesoscale discussion? Is it heavily STP weighted or is it forecaster's discretion? And there was a prior question, if I'm reading this chart right, a 5% tornado risk with EF3 plus potential would be a tornado driven enhanced risk. So I think actually these are exactly the kind of questions I was hoping we could get, because it gives us a chance to talk through how these get used. So thanks for that.
Yeah. Okay. So the first one, sorry, I'm having an old person moment too. I've literally been talking about this all day, and so I'm like, everything's jumbled. Okay. So what was the first part of the question?
Yeah. How would we differentiate between a peak intensity of EF3 or EF4 plus MDs? Right. Yeah.
Right. Okay, yes. So those peak intensity categories that you see in the MD, they are heavily weighted. Well, they're partially weighted by what the environmental parameters are. So for tornado, of course, a big part of that is STP. But also, the forecaster has the ability to go in and change those bins. We could lower them or increase them depending on what we're seeing observationally. And so what we're also trying to capture with those peak intensity bins in the MDs, it's over the next 4 hours. So it's not for the whole event, it's for the next 4 hours, starting with the issuance of the MD. And so sometimes, because our categorical outlooks are for a 24-hour period, right? So those the intensity groups that are in the outlook are for a 24-hour period, where this is for a 4-hour period. And so if you're at the beginning of the event, it ramps up over time. And so we may have to lower that peak intensity bin in that initial MD because, well, maybe we're not going to see, the strongest storm in the next 4 hours. Maybe it's going to be in 6 hours or something like that. So we do have the ability, forecaster discretion, to massage those based on timing and what we're seeing in observations. Because once the event is ongoing, observations drive everything. The models are kind of go to the side, and we're very observationally invested.
So you're saying that the day one outlook is not a storm chase outlook for the peak afternoon hours, and that the max risk may be after sunset? Or
I know
I can't
I
believe
know
you said
it's so
that.
disappointing. It's so disappointing that nature does not cooperate with our ability to take photos.
I've been working so hard on this conspiracy theory that y'all are working with the oil companies to get us to storm chase more, and now it's ruined by that simple revelation. My goodness.
I mean, you still can chase at night. It's just
Yeah,
terrifying. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just terrifying.
We can make it work. Liz, actually, I know this is something that I don't know if you can talk about this, but maybe you can. But what else is SPC working on? This has been in the works for a few years. Is there anything y'all talked about publicly-ish that you could talk about, or is it all top secret? Because if so, we'll be quiet. I won't say anything because I don't want anybody coming to my door, and I don't want the SPC agents coming to my door and taking my storm chase license away. It'd be sad.
So, I mean, this has been like the bulk of our efforts for a while now, and then just rolling it out. It's kind of what we've been focused on. We are working. So you kind of see, as I was talking about the MD here and the peak intensity information, how the outlook is directly tied to the MDs, and it's kind of like a funnel. Everything is tied together. Moving forward, we're also going to incorporate this into the watches. So where you see like the watch probabilities and the hazards that are mentioned, you're going to start seeing some more specific intensity information in the watches. That's going to be down the road. We still have to deal with dev work and stuff, for that. But the point is to start with the outlook, which is a world-class product that over decades we've gotten really, really good at. And that's where everything cascades from, is from the outlook information, and everything is tied together and integrated.
Yeah, that's going to be really exciting. Something else, I do have a note here too of something else we wanted to talk about or touch on. I actually happened to play with this tool a little bit earlier today, but you all released the Severe Hazards Data Viewer recently. I think it might have been today, but it seems like, but I played with it today and it was really quite, I really enjoyed it. It gave me a really good idea for a future video for the Titans channel, actually, in the next couple of months.
Yeah. Okay. Am I still sharing my screen? I forget.
You are indeed.
Okay.
So don't go.
Okay.
So don't go looking up recipes while I'm talking. That would be
okay. It opened up a new window, so I have to switch. Let me close this stuff so it's not too slow. Okay.
Which, by the way, this tool is amazing. I loved it. So just talking to the folks out there watching, I enjoyed.
So
it was ridiculous.
This was developed by David Harrison, he is one of our research scientists. So SPC has a partnership with OU, the University of Oklahoma, and we have a cooperative institute housed at the National Weather Center. They're called CIRO, and we have several research scientists who work with SPC to help develop different tools like this, other verification type things. They're working on all kinds of different stuff. If you're familiar with Cameron Nixon and some of his hail work and things like that, we're working with him. And so it's really great to have these, top-notch researchers co-located with SPC, working together with us to create some of these tools. So, but yes, this was just updated and released. You can see information for severe storms. We also have lightning climatologies. It's kind of boring because, we're in January, so let me change the date so you can actually see something cool.
Which, by the way, while you're doing that, I just want to propose a new severe weather drinking game, and any mention of Cameron Nixon and his work is going to be a part of that. Just throwing that out there right now. Just saying.
That goes hand in hand with me storm chasing and hail, just in general. So it all makes sense.
So yeah, this is a lightning climatology, and basically what it is, it's basically 30 years of data, and showing probabilities for the likelihood of different variables. We even have stuff for wildfires, which is really cool, because SPC does have a wildfire unit as well as severe, and we kind of like to say, like, the fire unit, that's the stuff that happens behind the dry line. And so, yeah, there's all, you can break this down. Let's go up here to tornadoes for the year. You can kind of get a look at, well, if it'll load. Yeah, my computer's starting to get kind of laggy.
We can slow your bandwidth if we need to. I'm sure this is keeping it hopping.
Just, oh, of course, now it loads as soon as I change it. Yeah, so there's the tornado climatology for the CONUS in February. So you can kind of start to see, we're what is today, February 3rd. We're gonna start probably, having a slow increase of severe potential across the southeast, as we start getting that Gulf moisture surging back into the southeast U.S. This time of year, so not too far from now. But yeah, you can break this down by tornado intensity, by wind, by hail, by daily, hourly. There's always to like slice and dice the data. It's a really cool tool to help you visualize climatologies for severe lightning and wildfires.
There were some questions about the links, I think. So does this have a specific home, like on the SPC website? So it's easier to back out to it, or will it? I guess.
I'm not gonna lie, I found it through the National Weather Service of Albuquerque posting about it today. So that's how I came across it. But I just posted it in the chat for folks.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thanks, Rachel.
And I did share on like the SPC Facebook and X pages this link, and I cannot remember. I'll have to get back to you on that.
It's fine.
Sorry, I can't remember if we have it, like if you just need the link or if you can find it through one of the tabs on the webpage. So yeah.
It's such a
I'm sure we'll keep sharing it out as well. But it might be a bookmark for
Yeah,
this one.
definitely.
Yeah, for sure. Jen, do we have any more questions in the chat that we
We
should get to?
do before, so we have we've had a couple of comments about communicating risk more broadly, but before we sort of broaden out, because we have a little bit of time, about another half hour, and technically our lives, everyone, are kind of fair game for anything storm chasing or girls who chase. But while we have Liz, whose time is very valuable, I just want to make sure that we don't have any more questions that are very specific to the outlooks coming out. I'm seeing the comments from Barbara and Christine, who are talking about how the setup in Europe isn't quite there yet. So that's been kind of interesting to watch. So thank you for sharing that, both of you. And I think, April, I would recommend just rewinding the part that you missed while you were on your phone call, because I think we actually covered that pretty directly. So any more, and I know folks have been kind of coming and going as well. So it's not like I hate to totally repeat things. I'm happy to. Any more questions specific to the Outlook process before we broaden our discussion just a tad? Not seeing anything at the moment. There was a comment that I thought was kind of interesting. Okay. This was actually there was a question from April a bit ago about how these will be coded into watch and warning text, and will they be listed and reiterated in the hazards. So that part we got into a little bit with what's being currently done in mesoscale discussion. So I don't necessarily want to repeat all of that. But I do think a little bit of a repeat discussion about how this is going to be utilized by meteorologists sharing with their own regional networks and audience. And then also something that I think we're grappling with right now in the storm chasing community is, who are people's trusted sources of information? Because it's not always the National Weather Service or your local broadcast Met. And how does that impact the quality of information that you're receiving? And I don't know that we can tackle that in 30 minutes, because it's a topic and has been a pretty significant topic at a lot of weather conferences recently. I think we're all grappling with it, but Liz is nodding, so I'm going to let her run on this one.
Yeah, so, I mean, the weather enterprise is changing and it's growing, and a lot of people are getting information from, if you want to call them weather influencers or whatever term you want to use for them. But I think the Weather Service, professional meteorologists, we need to start considering some of these people who have large reaches, who are reaching millions of people, of followers. We have to start treating them as partners. And so one of the things that, I mentioned about our outreach and educational effort for rolling out these new outlooks, we have reached out to some of these groups and individuals like Ryan Hall, and things like that, to have a conversation with them, because they do help spread our message. I know he looks at our information. I've heard him in his, live streams talking about the Weather Service, passing along Weather Service information. And so we have to start, meeting these people where they are and treating them as a partner. And so, yes, we're having conversations with them so that we are on the same page, so that the information that they're spreading, the message that they're sending, aligns with our message, so that everybody is getting the same information, whether it's directly from SPC, from the Weather Service webpage, from Fox News or Fox Weather, the Weather Channel, your local TV meteorologist. We want everybody to be on the same page. And I think SPC is in a great position for that because our products are really good. They are accurate. People trust them. There's a high level of trust. And so these other entities use our information. And so, yeah, we have to stay engaged with them and make sure that everybody's, saying the same things.
Yeah, absolutely. That's something that I honestly struggle with too sometimes, just watching. I mean, I'm one of those people that do that information, disseminate that information, but also just watching it. And it's not, I mean, it's just there's folks out there who have their way of doing things that just don't jive with all those things. We won't comment on that. That's for another, that's the 3 hour show after dark somewhere else. We won't talk about it here. But I think the thing that these new outlooks are going to do is they're going to actually provide some clarity in this crowded marketplace, because it is, I mean, everyone's dealing with this crowded marketplace of information right now. It's
Mm-hmm.
both good and bad. And I think like having this like official word on like intensity is going to be very big for people to start understanding this, because we know there are folks in online who have 500 followers who somehow get 500,000 shares on a post that's declaring doom for this setup a week out or something. And I think that these outlooks are going to start helping clear through that clutter a little bit, just give us a little bit more. So kudos to you guys, because this is great work. I think this is going to be a huge net benefit long term for
Thank you.
what we're working within now, for sure.
Yeah. And that's always our goal, to give the most accurate, clear information so that people can use it to, make good decisions.
This is probably a hill I'm going to die on as a science communicator. But I think that there is a happy medium, because I feel like when incidents happen and lives and property are destroyed, there is a tendency for weather and disaster management professionals to immediately move into the we should have communicated more, better, differently space, which doesn't always result, I think, in much at the end of the day, because maybe it's just the best we have at the time. And there's always going to be the like, it came without warning, when actually it came with 2 weeks of warning and you just chose to ignore it, right? So there is for sure somewhere in there a happy medium in terms of, yes, we need to meet people where they're at, but at the same time, it's also up to folks to be responsible in consumers of information and triple check your source. And if you're taken by the fear mongering and the forecast 7 to 10 days out because it, lights a fire for you, that's not a thing I think that we can correct on our end, I think, right? Definitely can communicate more, better, differently. There's always lessons to be learned, but right? And we're zeroing in on that. I think these changes are a great example of that. So I just hate to always see the community navel gazing at times like that, because there is a conversation to be had and a middle ground in there. Like there is a consumer's level of responsibility.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And, like you were saying, whenever a big, bad event happens, I mean, this is partly what SPC is doing. We are forecasting these events that happen on the bell curve, right? Like way outlier type events. And whenever you have an outlier type event happen, the impacts are going to be huge. That doesn't mean that you didn't forecast it well. That doesn't mean that you didn't communicate it well. you can't really do anything to stop an EF5 tornado from hitting a community, right? And if it hits a community, bad things are going to happen. And so from our perspective, the reason that we do what we do is to make sure that the people in that community had the information to take the right action, to protect themselves. And so, yeah, we're just trying to be more proactive in partnering with some of these groups that do have that larger following, that are making an effort to, spread good information. To meet with them to make sure that, yeah, we're all on the same page. We all have kind of the same goal, to make sure that people have accurate information.
And there was a comment in here earlier about the responsibility of storm chasers and live streamers, and I think we're seeing that intensify as we move forward in this kind of like mishmash of information type space, and holding each other accountable, which I feel like I've been seeing both meteorologists and storm chasers doing online quite a bit recently, combating misinformation, suggesting that perhaps a 10-day forecast might not be quite the level of risk that you're claiming it is, right? Stuff like that. So this can be tackled on a variety of levels, like, right, internal to our communities, but also, again, encouraging folks to find a trustworthy, informed source. That, if you're seeing a lot of like shock and awe, might be a sign that that isn't the source for you. I mean, unless we're in a tornado outbreak space, which we're not right now. And like I saw it happening also with the ice storm issues, a week and a half ago or so, kind of leading up to it, and people kind of jumping to conclusions and getting ahead of themselves and etc. But then there was this point where then I started to see meteorologists saying, okay, yep, time to go get milk and bread. This is that now we're sure this is happening, right? So it is everyone's responsibility, I think, to manage within their community, self-manage, and manage their own information consumption.
Yeah. And part of the way you do that, in part of the way you create trusted sources of information is by building relationships. And so that's, yeah, we're definitely just trying to do more of that with a wide array of partners.
Yeah, and I'm gonna do a shameless self promotion, but I'm actually working on a video that's like 3 steps to being informed for severe weather. I'm gonna give it away though, so then I'm not promoting. But my whole theory is like everyone should start first. Their first stop every day should be their local National Weather Service forecast office. Then you can pick your favorite media person. Everyone in Oklahoma has their favorite weather person, weather channel, weather's TV station, but just across the country, you all. So, and then from there, then if they're a social media only page, that's your third stop. So if they suddenly are disagreeing, I think that's like a safe way to build it. Like you're building these funnels through reliability. But yeah, I just think that, and I'm saying this as someone who disseminates weather information on social media, so this is perhaps like terrible advice even for for my own future, but I just think that like social media should be like the last stop on your weather information journey if you can help it. And like like your local National Weather Service forecast office. I'm sorry, Liz, I'm not telling people to check the SPC. Probably should, but I'm telling them to check their National Weather Service. I'm trying to keep it simple, but the local forecast offices are really incredible. They're full of really knowledgeable folks who know their local area, and they're really good about communicating risk in a very straightforward, honest, and quite honestly non-hype way. If they're saying big tornadoes today, probably going to be big tornadoes today.
True.
So
yeah, and we collaborate really closely, with our WFO partners, during the outlook process. We're chatting with them, discussing about, what are you planning for changes, what, all kinds of things during the outlook process. There's a discussion. And then, of course, during the watch phase, we're calling up those offices to talk about, the areas that are going to be included. And so, yeah, we work really closely with the WFOs, and the information that gets funneled down from SPC at the national level, they're communicating it for their specific area.
So it's time to spill the tea now, Liz. So we're at Girls Who Chase After Dark. What's the most complicated office to work with? It's Elko, isn't it? In Nevada. I know it. Elko. I'm joking. Don't say anything.
No. Wait.
April has a good point here too, and that was kind of, I think, what was at the foundation of this conversation, or the crux of it, is these days the ground truthing from the live streamers is making a huge difference, because communicating risk is hard, and there's a difference between communicating risk and here's a video of a tornado happening and it's heading your direction, right? Which then for sure is going to result in immediate response from people who are receiving that information. And we already have plenty of statistics on how that has saved lives. And so not by any means, I think, leaving that out of the process. I think the conversations that are happening are more around how do we piece all of these things together, right? So it's not just the live streamers that people are watching, but there's some relationship between the experts in forecasting and the ground truthers showing you what's happening in real time. So, yeah, I guess I would just say that out loud, and we can kind of use that to wrap up this discussion. But I think there's plenty of fodder to keep talking about this. I've seen a lot of panels covering this topic at recent weather conferences. The National Weather Association had a giant panel on this a couple months ago. I know AMS is looking at it as well, American Meteorological Society. And yeah, so we are coming up on time. I think this was actually a kind of a nice place to stop, because we kind of went from here are the changes to here are some of the implications about how it might be used socially and how it's going to get pushed out. And excited to see those go into effect, and quite proud to be the ones breaking this information with Liz. So thanks, Liz, for joining us to do that today.
Absolutely.
And I just want to note too, before everybody goes their separate ways and drops, we are going to get back into these lives for Girls Who Chase. And so if there are particular topics that you're interested in hearing discussions about, I think AI is probably going to be at least one of the near-term lives coming up, because I know this is something that chasers are really greatly struggling with right now. And we've had copyright conversations before, but it's been a minute. So where do we stand, and how does AI play in that? I could see that being a topic for sure. And again, we'll keep kind of back and forthing with Rachel and Tornado Titans on the education side. I do want to point out, if you want to stay on top of our happenings, we do now have a newsletter that you can sign up for. So if you go to our homepage at girlswhochase.com, you'll see the sign up for e-news, and you can subscribe yourself and manage your own subscription all together without us being involved. That's a great way to stay on top of everything. We have 2 trainings this spring. Amazing. Rachel's got my back in the chat. So thanks for that. We do have 2 upcoming trainings this spring. One is a hyper-focused radar workshop. So previous spring training events, we had people ask for the really in the weeds, expert level, how to understand radar parameters around things like storm behavior, particularly recognizing hail and potential hail size using radar, so things that really directly affect storm chasers. This is for folks at any level, though. We start you at the 101 level and then get into the weeds, and that will include a case study and a visit from some of our radar partners who provide radar for use while storm chasing. And then we're foraying into the world of photography a little bit with entry level weather, volcano, and aurora photography, which probably sounds very overwhelming, but hopefully won't be in conference format. And much like all of our events, both of these are online. Registration can be found at the radar workshop is girlswhochase.com/radar workshop. And the photography one is girlswhochase.com/capturing awe, AWE. So if you're interested in learning a little bit more about what it takes to capture weather photos, we've got some really top-notch people from all these various spaces who are going to join us, as well as an optional photo critique session on the Sunday of that weekend. So the radar workshop is in March. The photography one is in April. So if you're not an early season tornado chaser in Texas, Eastern Texas or Arkansas or places like that, you should join us for the photography one. Hoping that spring training will be back in 2027. We're dealing with a little bit of funding, administrative issues with our education partner, Comet Met Ed. So we're lightening the load on them this year and doing some more specialty workshops instead. So look out for an additional one in the spring there. And any other updates, girlswhochase.com. Thank you everyone for joining us today. And appreciate all the commentary and great questions. And thanks again to Liz for her time. And I'm going to stop the live here right now because I don't see anything else coming in. So thank you everyone for joining us today, and keep an eye out for advertisements for the next live, probably in a month or 6 weeks or so. So thanks everybody.
Great, thanks Jen.